They say history is written by the victors, but what about the stories that were deliberately erased? Tucked away in the dusty corners of ancient chronicles lies a tale so unexpected, so disruptive to the mainstream religious narrative, that few dare to speak it aloud. A Christian king, not only sympathetic to Islam, but instrumental in its survival. Yes, you heard that right. While empires clashed and faiths collided, one monarch crossed the divide, extended his hand, and changed the course of history forever. This is not a tale of war, conquest, or betrayal. It's the story of a bold decision, a hidden alliance that shielded a fragile truth from extinction. Welcome to the Hidden Agenda, a Christian monarch that aided Islam. The story you were never meant to know begins now. History is not always what it seems. Behind every dominant narrative lies a series of lesser-known truths, pieces of the puzzle often ignored, forgotten, or deliberately erased. One such provocative truth lies in the account of a Christian monarch who, rather than opposing Islam, became one of its earliest protectors. In a world obsessed with binaries, Christian versus Muslim, West versus East, this monarch defied expectations and revealed a hidden agenda that transcended religious rivalry: justice, compassion, and shared humanity. King Ashama ibn Abjar, the Negus of Abyssinia. Let us rewind the clock to the 7th century CE. Islam was in its infancy, its followers oppressed and hunted by the Quraysh elites of Mecca. The nascent Muslim community was battered, bruised, and in desperate need of refuge. In this critical hour, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made a bold and strategic move. He sent a group of his followers across the Red Sea to seek asylum in the Christian kingdom of Aksum, ruled by King Ashama ibn Abjar, also known as the Negus of Abyssinia. This decision was not arbitrary. The Prophet believed the Christian king was a man of fairness and divine wisdom. And he was right. The audacious move. When the Muslim refugees arrived, the Meccan envoys soon followed, demanding their extradition. They painted the Muslims as rebels, a danger to peace. But when the Negus summoned the refugees to defend themselves, something extraordinary happened. The Muslim spokesman, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, recited verses from the Quran, specifically from Surah Maryam, about the Virgin Mary and the miraculous birth of Jesus. As the words echoed through the king's court, the Christian monarch was moved to tears. Turning to the Meccan envoys, he declared, "What you have said and what Jesus has said come from the same lamp. You are free to live in my land in peace." In one sweeping declaration, the Negus defied the political pressure of the Meccan elite, protected the followers of a new and unrecognized religion, and risked regional instability, all for the sake of justice. Was it merely compassion or a hidden strategy? Here's where things get interesting. This wasn't just a story of religious tolerance. The Negus was a shrewd monarch, ruling over a strategically critical region in East Africa. The Red Sea was a vital trade corridor, and Mecca was rising as a powerful commercial hub. Harboring fugitives from Mecca could have easily sparked economic sanctions or even military retaliation. So why do it? Some scholars argue that the Negus saw something in Islam that resonated deeply with his own Christian beliefs, especially the strict monotheism, moral ethics, and the idea of prophetic succession. Others suggest he saw in Islam a potential ally, an emerging religious force that could stabilize the region under a new moral order. There are even Islamic traditions suggesting the Negus later accepted Islam privately, offering a spiritual alliance that history would quietly bury. The ripple effect. King Ashama's decision may appear small on the surface, but it set a precedent with seismic implications. It preserved the early Muslim community, ensuring the survival of Islam during its most vulnerable stage. It established the first recorded interfaith asylum, long before concepts like religious freedom or human rights entered Western consciousness. It challenged the narrative of inevitable religious conflict, reminding us that the Abrahamic faiths share a common root, and sometimes even a common cause. Why this story is often ignored. Why doesn't this story feature prominently in history books? Why isn't King Ashama celebrated alongside champions of religious freedom? Because it disrupts the dominant narrative. Western historical frameworks have long been built on the idea of religious confrontation, crusades, jihads, colonization, and conversion. A Christian monarch aiding Muslims? That's an uncomfortable truth. It suggests that Christians and Muslims were not always enemies. Sometimes they were allies. Sometimes they protected each other, and sometimes they saw in one another the reflection of divine truth. The lesson for today: in our age of division, this story resurfaces with a vengeance. It speaks to refugees, to interfaith communities, to oppressed minorities, and to every person who believes that justice transcends creed. King Ashama ibn Abjar was not just a monarch, he was a visionary. His hidden agenda wasn't betrayal of his faith, it was the fulfillment of it. He saw beyond the labels and recognized the essence of belief: submission to God, compassion for the oppressed, and courage in the face of tyranny. Conclusively, not all heroes wear the expected crown. The story of King Ashama ibn Abjar is not just a historical footnote. It's a defiant reminder that truth often blooms in the margins of power. While the world clings to narratives of division, here stands a forgotten monarch who dared to see through the noise, recognize justice over politics, and embrace faith over fear. This isn't merely about a Christian king helping Muslims. It's about the human conscience choosing what's right when it's hardest. It's about what happens when courage walks hand in hand with compassion. In an age where lines between us and them grow ever deeper, may this hidden alliance from the past challenge us to rethink our present and redraw the map of our future. Because sometimes the most radical act is simply to protect one another. The hidden agenda was never betrayal. It was legacy, and now it's no longer hidden. So, when we ask whether a Christian monarch ever aided Islam, the answer is a resounding yes. And not in secret, not out of weakness, but out of divine alignment. King Ashama's legacy challenges us to ask, what if the real battle isn't between religions, but between justice and injustice, regardless of who wears the crown?